Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our newest edition of Dell Talk. And I am really excited to kick off this season with a very special guest, a great friend, Paul Gigliotti. And before we have Paul jump on and tell us a little bit about what we're going to talk about today, Paul is the CEO of the California MBA, where he leads one of the most influential state mortgage associations in the country, and as is at the intersection of all the advocacy, policy, and industry strategy with the CMBA. Paul brings a rare end-to-end perspective to housing finance. Prior to leading the association, he spent years operating and scaling a mid-sized independent mortgage bank and helping grow Prudent AI, a mortgage technology company. So, Paul, I am super excited to have you on here today. I had the pleasure of being with you in person. Truth be told, I had to put my glasses on, Paul, to be able to see everything right before starting. But listen, I'm so excited to be here with you again today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it feels like what was that movie, 51st Dates or whatever? Like
Yeah,
I was right next to you live in person of last week or the week before.
the week before. Hey, Paul, I'm actually wearing my kicks today. Show my kicks.
Ah,
All
I
right.
love them, dude.
I'm,
Good for
I'm, I'm,
you.
I'm wearing my kicks. That wasn't planned, everybody. I'm glad that I'm wearing my right shoes today, my kind lending shoes. But
Yeah.
listen, I'm excited today, Paul, to talk to you. You're such a powerful person in the industry, and you lead such a great organization. And I think what we've seen is a lot of advocacy of what you all are doing at the CMBA. And maybe you can tell the people a little bit about who aren't familiar with the CMBA, how it was started and some of the advocacy work you all are working on right now.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be with the kind folk and have members like your organization that are so involved and steeped in the California MBA. We really appreciate the partnership because without you guys, we wouldn't be where we are. The California MBA is a nonprofit organization. We just celebrated our 75th year of being an organization. Oddly enough, we came to fruition as a commercial advocacy association, which quickly added in the residential side in mid 70s. And we still do support both commercial and residential. And Dell, our main purpose in existence is to educate lawmakers on how their proposed bills affect the industry and ultimately the consumer. you know, uh, uh, the lawmakers, assembly members, senators, Congress, they have ideas on how to reshape law, and they need associations like the California MBA to support how the intricate details of their proposed law, what that really means, and what that would do to the industry, and again, ultimately affect the consumer. When you think about the state of California, the third largest economy in the world. And I think there was a percentage that said somewhere around 27% of all housing is conducted in one state, the state of California. There's a
Mhm.
lot of legislation that's occurring, a lot of
Right.
legislation, especially in a state that's so diverse, in regards to what the consumer's needs are, both on an economic level and a personal level.
Mhm.
And so we're really thrilled to be able to, continue doing what we're doing, advocating for and with the industry. What I've found inspiring, Dell, is that as we're educating the lawmakers on how these proposed bills affect our industry and the consumer, we get to educate, just as I did at Kind Lending, we get to
Right.
educate our members on how important it is to stay abreast of the regulatory landscape. There's a lot of opportunity in that.
Yeah, there is, and you spoke about a couple of pieces of legislation you all are working on, and just in general, giving us a high view of what you're involved in. And thank you for being an advocacy for everyone. I think it's a big part of what we need more in our industry is more advocacy. So if you're not involved, get involved, regardless what state you're in. I think it's important for us to stay involved. And Paul, like you do a lot of education, right? Like I think we learned a lot when you were there. I think that's a big part of what we try to do as a lender at Kind is we focus on culture, we focus on education, and empowerment. And what are some of the things that off the top of your head is important to the CMBA right now that you're working on that you can share with us?
Yeah, there's a lot that we have on our plate right now. You know, I'll
Mhm.
preface before I jump in on
Yeah,
individual proposed bills.
yeah,
It's interesting to me as you know, you read a little bit about my experience. You know, I
yeah,
have COO of Pinnacle Home Loans, and then I was the
right.
chief growth officer at Prudent AI. I
Mhm.
come into advocacy with a lens of it's, even though it's an association, it's a nonprofit, and it deals with government entities, it's still a business. And
Yeah,
what I find to be so fascinating is advocacy is constant, just like market conditions, consumer sentiment, product needs. It never stops moving and evolving, and it's constant in our industry. Regulation and laws not going away. And
right,
so it really is up to the industry as a whole to be educated on it and participate. Because if you don't, then you don't see what's going on. Just like, you run production, you're a great production leader at Kind Lending. And I'm sure that you have tools, tricks, and trades and communication to ensure that every one of your account executives or your retail LOs know what the market's doing in anticipation of what's going to happen later on.
that's
And
right.
so we really are trying to stay at the forefront and ensure that our our members understand where we are with proposed bills and what is going to happen next.
That's
I
right.
think right now, top of mind awareness for the California MBA and our lender associations, lender members and associate members, is we've got a couple of bills that are centered around disaster relief, specifically for the wildfire victims. But then some of these proposed bills look to be permanent. So there's a lot of forbearance bills that are flying around. And while it's very important to ensure that everybody's supporting the consumer as much as possible, as these were unintended, occurrences, wildfires, we never thought that it would burn so many acres and
Yeah,
there would be such devastation to the communities. We still do have to ensure that we're supporting those consumers the right way. And from my perspective, the right way is not kicking the can down the road, not providing
yeah,
a band-aid, but providing a solve. What are we going to do for these natural disaster victims now and then going forward, so we're not in the same situation?
mhm,
So we are seeing a couple of proposed bills around forbearance.
okay,
We've got a couple of artificial intelligence bills, as I'm sure you would could only
yeah,
imagine, with
I bet.
all the work that's being poured into AI
Mhm.
in every industry, in our industry alone. Um, the thing
Yeah,
is, with some of the state proposed bills, Dell, there's already federal bills that are in
mhm,
place. And so if state bills come in and they don't monitor what the federal bills are doing, then we've got a layer effect. And
okay,
right now, some of the proposed bills, while they have great intention, they almost muddy the waters from what's happening at a federal level. And
I
what
bet.
that would do to organizations like Kind is that would require, a massive overhaul on your vendor due diligence,
Mhm,
which then in turn would stop the usability of the technology, which then in turn would not provide the speed and accuracy your consumer requires.
right,
So it just becomes like this running away wheelbarrow where you got to catch up to it, but you just can't catch it fast enough. So our job is to ensure that, again, the proposed the lawmakers understand how those proposed bills really, while intended well, don't get to the meat of what they're looking to get. And that's specifically on this proposed bill around artificial intelligence.
mhm,
They want to remove bias, right? So the lawmakers' purpose is that this bill is not, when an artificial intelligence solution is coming in to qualify a consumer, it's looking at the facts and maybe not the zip code or type of work or ethnicity, right? So they want all of that to be removed. And if you have the experience in technology, you would understand that actually artificial intelligence doesn't have bias, and artificial intelligence that works well doesn't hallucinate. And in fact, it does the opposite of having bias, right? Because it just looks at the facts. And so that's where we get to step in with the help of, organizations like Kind Lending and Prudent AI and Cotality, and say, come help us and explain why there's not bias in your artificial intelligence model and how that just wouldn't happen, so we can get really granular.
That's great, because that is in the forefront right now. We talked about at the office when you're with the group, is that AI has a lot of components to it that sometimes I think even some lenders, originators aren't fully understanding the implications. Especially when there's overlap in some of the regulation, right? That's a
Yeah,
big part. That's a big part of
yeah,
it too.
yeah,
And you know we if you're the way I look at this too, Paul, is that there's so many benefits of being involved in aligning. If you're an originator, an AE, and a lender with you and the CMBA, if you're, how does being engaged with the California MBA actually help originators and AEs like win more business out in the field? To me, education comes to mind
yeah,
immediately, right?
yeah.
Involved, but if I'm an account executive or an originator, or even um, a lender that's looking to get more partnership with you, what are some of the benefits that you see, and what are some of the pieces that helps win more business, you would think?
That's a great question. You're spot on, my friend. You must be reading my mind. It's about education. It's about
Yeah,
educating. What's
yeah,
important, I think, to add to that, and
yeah,
I'm sure you agree. When
yeah.
you're educated, you feel empowered,
That's
and
right.
when you're empowered and you're selling, that comes across clearer.
Yeah,
So here's a perfect example where we're sitting right now in this mess of forbearance. What length of time? How does it work?
yeah,
Is it a lump sum payback? Does your mortgage payments go up? What does that all look like? Construction
right,
loans, all of the mess that we're in right now.
right.
And let's not even bring in insurance. Um, a lot of the disconnect right now with consumers is they don't understand that a Fannie Mae loan, a Freddie Mac loan, an FHA loan, a VA loan, or a portfolio loan have different requirements for forbearance.
Mhm.
They don't understand what that means, and rightfully so. It's they want to know what the interest rate is, the terms of the loan, and their closing costs, and when they can close when they bought the
Right,
home. Right?
right, right,
Um, so talk about educating and empowering, Dell. It's up to the originators and the account executives to share this information to the brokers, to share this information to the consumers. Hey, I know X agency loan has a better rate, but I just want to let you know that maybe their forbearance guides are a little bit more strict than another one.
yeah,
Maybe the one that has a slightly higher closing cost has a linear elongated forbearance requirement or guideline, right? So when it comes to the education and the empowerment, it's on a very detailed level, right? It's on a very detailed level for your retail originators and your wholesale account executives to be able to share that information. But I
right,
also think that that concept of empowerment really helps salespeople when they're speaking to the consumer who's got so many options at their fingertips for getting a loan. I think just generally speaking, having an originator that's educated in advocacy and legislative initiatives in their state and maybe even specifically their county, it makes them show up a lot better.
yeah,
It makes
yeah,
them seem like they're engaged in the industry and the product that they're bringing to the consumer. So I think there's a couple of benefits that kind of, you know, support the production end of it, of an
mm,
originator. Um, and again, it ties back to what we had spoken about: the
right,
educating, the empowerment, and participation in the industry.
yeah. I think you very well said, Paul. And I think that's what we're trying to do, right? Is educate everybody. I think you were to use the word empowerment. That's a big piece. What I think makes people successful or feel successful, how they can educate as well too. And I know that we had you for a limited amount of time today, but I want to ask you a couple more questions real quick,
Bring it
just
on, my
for you.
friend.
Yeah, I love your background because you bring so much to the table, right, Paul? Like you've seen it all, right? It's and it makes you so successful in the chair you're sitting in now. But if you're sitting in a production seat today or an originator seat, what would you be doing differently based on what you're seeing out in the market? Obviously, we just talked about education. That's a big part. Like, be more strategic in what area? Or is it more focused on AI? Is it leaning into community, information, engagement? What would you say if you're in a production seat? What would you say you would be doing differently from based on what you're seeing out there?
I think that's a really great question, and this comes across as not necessarily on the advocacy legislative side,
Yeah,
but I think as a production person,
yeah,
if I was in that role or running that role, um, I would be focused on engagement. I think artificial
love.
intelligence, AI solutions, coupled with OCR
Yep.
technology, um, it's not going to take away production's jobs,
Uh-huh.
but what it is going to do is it's going to require, um, it's going to provide speed and efficiency of data and information.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so then the outlier of that is going to be the production person that has relationships, because relationships cannot be taken away with artificial intelligence. They can be enhanced. I could do some research before I knock on Delfino's door or give him a call to know what
Uh-huh.
he likes as I'm talking to him about a refi, and then he has
Right.
kids and where he lives, and be able to, oh my God, loves golf. So I'm going to talk about my golf game, right? Like I
Yeah.
can do that research with AI, but the relationship that I would create as a production person with Dell as a
Yeah.
consumer can't be replaced. And so
Right.
you mentioned community and engagement. I would triple down on that bad boy like
Yeah.
nobody's business if I was in production right
Right.
now.
Right. That's great, man. That's great. Well, listen, we had you on here for some time. I want to make you a regular guest. I think there's so many things for us to talk about
Anytime.
if you're open for it. We love partnering with you. I'm very fortunate to get to see you in person again next week.
Awesome.
So that's going to be fun, and I'm really excited about that. Before I leave you here, Paul, I ask all my guests this, and it sounds kind of, I don't know if it's a weird question or not, but everybody has their routine in the morning. They do their thing to get them ready for the day. What's your routine look like? Do you have a routine?
I
Have you
do.
tried things? Like, what's your routine, Paul? Tell me, get your
I
day started.
so don't laugh. I want to stare at your face, but I can't take my eyes off the camera. 3 days a
Yeah.
week, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I
Uh-huh.
turn my coffee machine on, and I go to the gym
Nice.
till I get to the gym by 5:30. I'm back
Nice.
at home by 6:45.
Yeah.
Um, I usually participate in pushing our children into the shower, not physically, but somewhat, and then
Yeah.
make breakfast and then get in the shower. The
Love
other
it.
2 days a week, I'm
Yeah.
thrilled to sleep in. So, like, today was a sleep in day. So I got to
Nice.
sleep in till like 6, and I
Nice.
just kind of ease into the day a little bit easier on those 2
Yeah.
days.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah,
awesome, Paul. Thank you
yeah.
for sharing that. I love that mental fitness, health fitness, all that's a big part of our success on a
It
day.
really is.
Yeah, how we start the day matters. So,
Yeah.
listen, thank you so much, Paul, for being a guest with us today. Again, I'm super excited to be with you in person next week. If you want, they want to get a hold of you. If anybody wants to get, what's your email address, Paul? Somebody wants to get a hold of you.
Super, super easy. Paul at cmba.com.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for watching our latest episode of Dell Talk with a very special guest, Paul Gigliotti, CEO of the CMBA. Thanks a lot, Paul. Thank you for
Thanks for
watching.
having me, Del.
All right. No problem. Have a good day.